up to 4 years of Project Lead the Way courses in either the engineering strand or the biomedical science strand. And both of those culminate in a senior capstone course. The senior capstone course, the students actually do a very rigorous project. On the engineering side, it is an engineering design project where they go through the complete design process over the course of the year. And then the biomedical science side, they have a little bit more flexibility, but many of them do some type of experimental design, and some of them actually do a design project where they come up with a product. So it's totally driven by the student interest. And a year ago, we started the engineering design contest because of the technology available to us through the innovation portal. And Elliot's going to talk a little bit about how the innovation portal works, but basically it is an online space where students will be able to upload their projects, and then we will be able to connect them to professionals like yourselves who will go in and be able to judge their project remotely and easily and against a rubric, a common rubric. And so it worked great last year with engineering, and so we are experimenting this year a little bit with the biomed side. And so in that regard, if you happen to be judging the biomed contest this year, we are going to ask you to stay on the call for just a few minutes at the end, and we're going to talk a little bit about a couple of unique things related to the biomed contest. But from the standpoint of timing, the students are feverishly finishing up their projects this week and will be uploading them to the innovation portal by midnight on March 31st. I will, at that point, go in and be assigning those to judges on the 1st, and we'll talk a little bit about that more in detail. But your judging window will be April 1st through the 15th, and so I'll be looking at them the morning of the 16th. So whenever it works out in your schedule that you can evaluate your projects during that window would be fantastic. Then we will be announcing the winners at the Project Lead the Way Senior Showcase, which is on April 19th at Union Station. And you are all cordially invited. We would love to have you come. It is certainly not required, but I think some of the judges that came last year said it was fun for them to actually see the projects in person. The good thing about doing this online is that it's convenient. But the downside is that you don't have the fun part of getting to see the projects and the students in person. So please feel free to join us, and I will be sending you a separate invitation for that early next week. In relation to the contest, though, last year several of the judges said they would like to see the final winning entries, and so at the end of the contest I will provide you a link so that you can actually go in and look at the 3 winning entries. That's really the only downside of doing this remotely too. You'll only be seeing the 3 projects that you're judging, and so it could be they're the top 3 in the contest, and it could be that they're the bottom 3 in the contest. So it's just nice to have a little bit of context and reflection at the end. So we will try to provide that for you. In that regard, we're also very, very interested in having your feedback. And so following the judging window, you'll be receiving a link to a survey that's being conducted by Gail Goldberg. And she is one of the researchers that was very involved with helping develop the rubric and test the rubric, go through all of the validity testing with lots of different academics and institutions. And so we want to give her some great feedback. So I think with that, we've got a couple more people that have popped on. I just want to welcome, let's see who else is here, Jen Wen and Kevin. Thanks for being here today. Thank you so much for judging. And so at this point, I'm going to, from a housekeeping standpoint, just ask everybody to keep their audio on mute. And then I will introduce Elliot Mork with Project Lead the Way, who will take us through the training.
Thank you, Anne. First, I want to check a couple things that I successfully took myself off mute, that you can see my screen, and that you know where the chat box is. So, if all those three things are correct, could you send me just a message in chat to let me know that you're hearing me and you're seeing my screen? All right, we got one yes. Sounds like it's good. Okay. So my name is Elliot Mork. I work with Project Lead the Way in the development office. Most of my work focuses around connecting business and industry to students and in Project Lead the Way and projects that they're doing. A main point of that is the innovation portal. And so I manage the innovation portal. If you ever have any issues, technical issues with innovation portal, you can send that along to me at emork@pltw.org. All right, let's go ahead and get into this training. To give you an overview of what we will be covering today, 8 different topic points. The first 2 you've probably already done. I think Anne has informed me that most of you already have an account on the innovation portal and are connected up as a judge to the competition. So the first 2, check your browser. Second is create an innovation portal account and get connected. We'll cover that in a little bit more detail, but I think most of you have already accomplished that. Next, we'll do an overview of how the online system works, how the innovation portal actually does what it does, and to give you a broad concept of how the system works. The next one is how to access portfolios assigned to you. On April 1st, Anne will be sending out notifications to you that you have some number of portfolios assigned. I think for this competition, you'll have somewhere between 3 and 5 portfolios to review. We have extensive feedback from judges that tell us the first portfolio that's evaluated takes just over an hour, and then any portfolios after that take about less than 1 hour. So 3 to 5 portfolios, roughly about 3 to 5 hours. The next thing we'll cover is going a little bit in depth on the rubric that you'll be using. The innovation portal is built on a standardized rubric, and students get to see that from the very beginning before they build up portfolios and do their work, and then you see the exact same resources that students see to actually evaluate the student work in portfolios. I'll show you how to access the rubric, and then I'll show you how to access scored examples as a resource to you to help yourself calibrate to how you should be evaluating any of all of the student work. Lastly, I'll show you how to submit your scores to Anne. I think you'll be getting your portfolios to review April 1st, and then they'll be due on April 15th. So you have about 14 days there. I think 2 weekends are built in. So you can evaluate these at your leisure. If you have any questions throughout the presentation, you can either throw it in the chat box, and we'll pause every once in a while to address those, or you can take yourself off mute and just ask a question if you'd like to as well. So the first step, how do you get connected to a competition? Which I think most of you already have done this, so you may have already done this step. But the first step is to create an account on the innovation portal. There's no special account that's a judge account or student account or teacher account. It's all just one type of account. Once you create that account, you send the email address that you used to register to Anne, and then what she can do is initiate an invitation to you to actually judge that competition. So once you've created the account, she can push an invitation out to you into that account within the innovation portal. You should receive an email, and you'll have a notification in the innovation portal that you have an invitation to judge, and then you can either click in the email, accept the invitation, or you can log into the innovation portal and accept it within then. One note there with the emails, if you click that link more than once, you'll get a 404 error, but you're already a judge if you click that link and get a 404 error, so you don't need to click it again. Quick overview of the innovation portal as a competition tool. Students and student teams are working on their portfolios right now, actually, putting that portfolio work together. The first step that they have to do to enter the competition is to register. We ask students to register as soon as possible and quite early, so that gives Anne an idea of how many portfolios she may be that may be entered into the competition, which tells her how many judges she'll need to recruit to actually get all of those submissions reviewed by judges. What students are working on right now is there's a submission window for this competition, March 14th through the 31st, where students have the window where they're allowed to submit their portfolio work into the competition. So March, I think it's sometime on March 31st is the due date for students, and then on March 1st, and we'll get to see all those portfolios that were sent in by students and be able to distribute those out to judges. During this entire process, Anne is the competition administrator here. She's in communication with students and student teams, knowing about what to expect with submissions, and in communication with judges to recruit them. And so I think she mentioned there's a pool of 90 judges for these two competitions. There can be quite a few portfolios submitted by student and student teams into the competition. On April 1st, there's a magic button for Anne to automatically distribute these portfolios out to judges. Each portfolio will be reviewed at least 3 times, which means mathematically about each judge will receive about 3 submissions to review. Possibly could be 4, depending on the number of final submissions and how many judges that are in the judging pool. So Anne clicks that button. There's a magic algorithm to distribute those out to all the judges. You'll each get a few portfolios to review. You'll have that 2-week window to review from April 1st to April 15th to evaluate the student work based on a common rubric, which we'll go through. And then on April 15th, or at least by April 15th, you'll be sending those scores back to Anne as the competition administrator. So Innovation Portal, holistically, with anyone can create a portfolio. So even you as a judge account, which is not a different account, but any account on the Innovation Portal can create a portfolio. That portfolio, we like to think of it as a 3-ring binder with a cover page and tabs along the side, and where you can put your work to document design process work. So any person that owns a portfolio can invite project partners. They can invite them in to be a viewer, a collaborator, or a reviewer to actually do a scored evaluation of it. So there can be any number of project partners that can work on a portfolio together as either viewers or collaborators or even co-owners on a single portfolio. And then what we see a lot is students invite their classroom teacher in to actually do reviews or to view their portfolio so the teacher can keep up to date on the work that the students are doing. Students also have the option to work with project mentors throughout the development of their portfolio and working on their engineering design process. They can send out reviews to project mentors so that they can go through the evaluation process that you are about to learn and give them a test score, see this is about what I would score you and this is how to improve. And those can be sent out separately, independently of a competition. But when it comes time for the submission window in a competition, a student can take that portfolio and take a snapshot of it in time, which is then called a submission, and put it into a competition. We call that category opportunities because there are some opportunities that aren't strictly competitions. There's some internship programs and some other things in there, but they're mostly opportunities for students. But a good amount, or about 90% of those opportunities, are actual competitions that are run. The neat thing about the Innovation Portal is once they build a portfolio, they can actually submit to multiple competitions if they're eligible for it. So I think any student working in a PLTW capstone course in the Kansas City area can submit to this competition, but there's also another competition that's international called the Conrad Spirit of Innovation competition, which is actually in the final round right now. But if they had prepared their portfolio ahead of time, they could be submitting that to that competition as well. That's an international competition, and submit the exact same portfolio to the Kansas City competition. And that's because it's all built on that similar, that same rubric. One account can have multiple portfolios, so you're not limited to just one. A student can own multiple 1, 2, or even 3, 4 portfolios on the Innovation Portal. There's no limit. All right, at this point I want to stop for some questions. Any broad context questions about the Innovation Portal? All right, with no questions, we'll keep on going. So this is the screen that you'll see when you log into the Innovation Portal for the first time. The only difference is that I have 46 portfolios attached to this account. You will have 0, so you'll see a screen that says you have 0 portfolios. Would you like to make a portfolio? But we have this navigation bar on the left-hand side, and we start after logging in into My Portfolios. So that's what will load by default. I want to call attention to the notification window, because not only should you be receiving emails with an invitation to judge from Anne, you'll also be receiving alerts that when you are assigned to actually evaluate and review some student work. So if we click into My Notifications, we can see what one of those notifications look like. You have a notification. This was on March 16th, and this account was assigned to review a submission, forklift safety. For an opportunity, this is another opportunity or competition that is hosted, but this will say Kansas City competition here for you. So this is like your inbox of notifications. So what I want to go to next are those actual opportunities on the left-hand menu bar. If we click on opportunities, we can see all of the current competitions that are hosted on the Innovation Portal. And these are competitions that have not come to their submission date yet. So students are currently working on their work to submit to these competitions. We can see the next upcoming competition, the date-wise, is the Kansas City, the two competitions, Kansas City Engineering Design Competition and Kansas City Area BioMedical Research and Design Competition. But there's a lot more competitions if we scroll down. Some are state-based and some are regional-based and some are international-based. I want to note that we can filter by current or by past. And one thing that is a little bit strange is this Kansas City Area Design Competition. Once students submit to their student work to that competition, and the date we go to April 1st, this entire competition will move over to past. So even though we see it right now in current, we will have to click over here into past to actually see the competition once that submission date passes, which is on March 31st. So I brought up here the 2015 Kansas City Engineering Design Competition because this is similar to what it will look like for the 2016 competition on April 1st, once the competition has closed. The 2015 will be removed before April 1st, so you'll only see we'll see two Kansas City competitions, one the engineering design competition, and one is the biomedical competition. For the training example, I use this competition called Training Example, just to show you how it works. You will not click Training Example, you'll click the 2016 Kansas City area competition that you you volunteered for. So if we click into this, we will see we can tell that we're a judge because of this blue menu bar on top. If you don't have this blue menu bar on top, that means you're not a judge for that competition and the invitation has not gone through. But you can verify that you are a judge if you have this menu bar here. We'll see some basic information about the competition, description, general restrictions, what students can apply, who is it for. You also see a registration open and close and a submission open and close. What regions it's open to, and some other key metrics about the competition. Where we'll want to go first is where we'll want to go to actually look at the reviews once they've been assigned on April 1st is in reviews here. So if we click on that, we can see all of the reviews in this competition that I am assigned to review. Right now I have 11 portfolios and I've completed 5 of those 11 portfolios. You will have somewhere between 3 and 5 total, and then as you complete the reviews, this number will change to say how many you've completed. For each submission review or each portfolio, there'll be a title, and then underneath it, it'll say the status, whether you've completed that review or whether it's still active and you need to complete it. So the first couple ones I've already completed, just because I've hosted a few trainings this spring. But if we scroll down to forklift safety, we can go into this one and actually start a review. So this is the page that you first see when you open up a submission that a student has submitted. Again, going back to that 3-ring binder analogy, we're on the portfolio cover page right now. The tabs along the right-hand side of the 3-ring binder are these letters, which are the categories or elements that the portfolio will be evaluated on. It starts out on the portfolio cover page, which is like that cover piece of plastic that you can slip a piece of paper in. There's nothing to grade on the cover, but it's there just for team members to put pictures of themselves and say what their project is and to make it look pretty, but there's no actual content that gets evaluated on the portfolio cover page. To open the first element that will actually be evaluated, we can hover over A and then click. Once we click that, different content will load, and we can see the student work loaded in here, and we can scroll down here and see all the content the students have loaded in. The text is pretty big on this one, so there's a lot of scrolling to do. There can be several different types of content. It can be links, it can be text, it can be images, it can be videos, a bunch of different types of content. So if we scroll back up, this right-hand panel has all the information that the Innovation Portal is built on, that rubric. The rubric was built over I think a 3-year NSF grant through panels of engineering educators. And I think Dr. Goldberg, who Ann mentioned, was actually one of the lead researchers to build this rubric. The whole concept behind it is that if you articulate what the engineering design process is, then you can build a standardized rubric to evaluate in any going through that process for any different product. So this is that rubric that has been developed through a lot of university professors that teach engineering education, high school practicing teachers that teach engineering education, and this is the work of several years of a lot of those educators coming together and coming up with a defined rubric. So element A is the first step of that design process with a rubric attached to it. A is presentation and justification of the problem. It's all about that problem statement. What are we trying to solve? Stating that. There's a couple different pieces of content you have that is the rubric. The first one I like to start out with are the reflective questions. When we work with students, we say that to the students that this is almost a checklist of things to do. So we phrased it in the Innovation Portal as, did you offer the reviewers of this portfolio? And then several questions. So the first one, a clear and concise problem statement that offers cause and effect phrasing and includes some level of data or statistics about the severity of the problem. So that's the first thing you should do, and then each one of these bullet points are something that the students should provide. What you can use is, are these reflective questions of asking yourself, did the portfolio do this? Yes or no? The next piece that you have is the element rubric with the scoring scale. This scale, Dr. Goldberg has said that think of it as like a staircase. In good rubric design, the spread or the difference between a 5 and a 4 and a 4 and a 3 should be about the same. The scale should be even. So then that means that the 3 to 2 and the 2 to 1 and the 1 to 0 should all be about the same spacing. For each score, you have a description of what a 0 is, or what a 1 is, or what a 2 is. And so if we go into 4, we can read what it takes to get a 4, but not exactly what it takes to get a 4, because if the student work falls somewhere in between a 3 and a 4, it's not a true staircase because it's a staircase of best fit. So if the student work was right in between a 3 and 4, it's your job as the reviewer to read the description of a 3 and a 4 and decide which one is closest. So it's not a threshold, so it doesn't have to hit 4 completely to make a 4. It just has to be over a 3 and then closer to a 4 on this rubric staircase. So for each of these, we have a text description about exactly what's required to hit that score. But then also what's exciting is we have a scored element example. So I mentioned earlier that we had a lot of engineering educators come to consensus about the construction of the rubric, but what they also did was take some actual student portfolios and evaluate them. Hours and hours of time through lots of engineering educators sat down and evaluated a lot of rubrics, a lot of student work. And then through all that evaluation time, what came of it are some true, really good examples of scores for each element with actual student work. And so we're going to open up one of these files that really describes on element A, what do you need to do to get a 3. And so before I click this, I want you to take your attention up to the upper left-hand part of the screen. It's going to open up a new window. So this new window, your web browser may automatically take you to this tab, or you may have to click that tab once you've actually opened it. It's just a PDF file that you're viewing here. The first part on here is the commentary of that of those dozens of educators that scored this a 3. So there's consensus that this student work deserves a score of 3, and it has a justification or the description of why it is a score of 3. That those educators came to in a collective manner. So really powerful tool for you to follow their thinking of why that's a 3. If we scroll down further, we can see that it's the entire rubric in different components and elements, all the way A through N, and then highlighting what element that this document is relevant to. We can see the actual rubric for element A, the description text from the score of 5 ranging all the way down to 0, with the score that's relevant for this student work highlighted, which is 3 here. If we scroll down further, we can see the actual student work. So we can look through this work and see exactly what the student said and why that committee rated it as a score of 3. So this portfolio, you'll get to see some interesting work by students. This one is a traffic signal. Up north, they switched some incandescent bulbs to LED bulbs, which was great because you can save money on the electricity cost, but in colder climates, it's not great because in the wintertime, snow and sleet can build up on those lenses, because the incandescent bulbs, actually that waste energy that comes off as heat, would actually have melted that sleet and snow. So with LED bulbs, they actually spend more money with crews out there cleaning, so motorists can actually see the signals and see red versus green and yellow. So pretty interesting problem that students were working on here, and I've been told that you could get rich if you figure out this problem. So I don't exactly know where the students landed on this one, but you can read through it if you'd like to.
Elliot, I'm just going to pop in for something. I think I wanted to just point out, as Elliot was scrolling through, you could see that there was sort of some formatting changes and different fonts. And one thing about the portal is that as students upload their information into the portal, they're actually building a web page. And so it's not really flexible. It's not like a word processor where you can just highlight it all and hit a button and make it all look nice in the same font. And so it's a little tricky to do that. And so I would just ask you to sort of focus on the content. Don't worry quite so much about the formatting if it doesn't look pretty.
Yeah, the innovation portal is you're building a web page when you build a portfolio, which is designed to scale dynamically based on resolution, screen size, and what you have, which doesn't translate perfectly when you try to do a printout with a defined aspect ratio and resolution. So it should all be there readable, but please don't punish students or deduct points for formatting issues, because that might not be completely in their control. So if we go back to our window here, so again, we're back on element A. We've opened up that document that is student work for, what would it be? Student work that is a 3. We can open up that scored element example. So then we've come to a pretty good consensus that this, we're pretty sure that this may be a 3, this element. So we're highlighted on A here, and on the bottom right-hand corner, when we close out that menu bar, we can see a little blue pen on the bottom right. If we click that, this brings up what effectively is our clipboard. Sometimes we use the analogy of a science fair, and when you go to judge a science fair, you get a clipboard with a score sheet. That's what this is here. This is your score sheet as a judge that you'll actually write the score down and submit to the person hosting the science fair to actually tally up all the judge scores. So this is where the score, you'll actually input it. On this score sheet, you have a score here. You have a question mark that it defaults to. We said this was going to be a score of 3, so we can click that. If we're unsure at this point, we have a little plus sign here that we can click, and we have the rubric, the same rubric on the right-hand side. We have that pops up here, and we can toggle it back and forth. If we think this might be a 4, we can read this description again. We can look at a 3, and it might be a 3. We can toggle that back and forth, decide which one fits best, and then put the score not here, but down here. Again, this is where it'll be recorded on the sheet. This also becomes a little complicated with screen real estate because you're looking at student work. You have your score sheet or your clipboard down here, and then you also have the rubric here. And so if that gets to be too much, you can click X and close that. So we have this score as a 3. We can also put a comment in right here. So if we write a comment, this is a comment for the score of element A. It is a 3 on the rubric. So that comment is there. The innovation portal, every couple microseconds, saves everything you've done. So there's no save button. So once you've typed it out, it's already saved. Also, your score is already saved. So if we close out that score sheet, we can even click to the next element B, and then click back to A, and all that information that we put there, that comment and that score, is still available on your score sheet, saved for you. So we've scored A. We decided that was a 3, and we have our comment loaded in there. So let's close that out and then go to B. We're flipping our 3-ring binder to the next tab, which is B. The element B is all about the documentation and analysis of prior solution attempts, kind of doing that research step to see if anyone else has done this before. You have the same reflective questions, not the exact same. You have the same structure of reflective questions, which are different for element B. You have the rubric, which is different text, but again, that same smooth staircase. And then you have the student work that's been collectively decided that this is that score for each one of these scores. So we can open up our score sheet again, our clipboard for judging, and maybe we thought the students did a little bit better on this one, so we can click a score of 4 and then say, great job. This element gets a score of 4. All right, so that's already saved there. Actually, I'm seeing a question by Kevin. Are you allowed to modify the score when you go back to that section at a later time? Yes, you can. So we've already done. We just did B. We scored that. We can go back to A, and then actually change that score. What we do ask though is that the content in tab B doesn't affect the score of tab A, and so one thing we are asking of students that they do put the content that is relevant to that stage of the design cycle in that same element. So you can change it, but you really shouldn't be looking at B and then changing the score of A. All right, so we can repeat that all the way down through all of these elements. It goes down to N. But for the Kansas City competition, you're actually not going to have a little blue pen for M or N. So if we click M, there's no content on this portfolio, and there's no pen to actually open up the score sheet. That's because the Kansas City competition is not using the elements M and N to actually score portfolios. So don't worry if you don't see the blue pen down there for M and N, because they won't be evaluated. So we can make sure everything else is filled in though. Once we've done that and we're pretty sure all of our scores are correct, we can click Complete Review. I like to call this the Amazon shop cart, or your checkout cart for Amazon. It allows you to review everything that you've done and see if you really want to send it off. So we have a score submitted for element A and element B, and we also have our comments listed down here and here. If there's no comments, it'll just say there are no comments for this element review, and then if we didn't put a score in, it'll be question mark. So for element M and N, you will have a question mark for the score because you don't have a score sheet that you can open up to score. But let's pretend everything else is filled in with the score here. So if we scroll down, the next analogy I like to use is we've judged the science fair. We have all our sheets of paper. We know what the scores are going to be. But we're not physically there. We have to mail in our score sheets. So we have to put them in an envelope and put a stamp on it. So this button right here is a button that says you know that you can't change anything after you go past this. So to answer Kevin's question more fully, is you can change everything you want until you actually check this radio button and click Complete Review. So that's like putting a stamp on the envelope and then putting it in the mail. Once you put it in the mail, you can't go back. It's gone. It's sent off. We built that in intentionally to the innovation portal because Anne, on April 15th or April 16th, whenever she's looking at the scores, she needs to know that these scores are locked in, and that it's final and everything has been evaluated, and she can use those scores to decide who gets first place, second place, third place at the actual at the showcase. So we need a lock-in date. To commit to what the scores are. So we can put a stamp on our envelope here and then press complete review. And it takes a little minute. We're sending our scores off to the competition, and it drops us on this left-hand tab called My Reviews. So these are all the reviews I've done with this account. Again, quite a few just because I use it for all the judge training, so I have 14 out of 14. I could filter by active or complete. So active are ones that are not complete, and then complete are the ones that you have complete. So we just did, which one did we do? I believe we just did the forklift safety, maybe. I think so. So if we click that, we can go back in and view the student work. So we can view all the same work. That's the cover page, element A. We can go in and look at that. We can go into B. We can look at that. But if you notice, we don't have that blue pin in the bottom right for any of the elements, so we can't change anything. What we can do is see the work, look at the work that we did by clicking Review Summary. And that same shopping cart window comes up, and we can see that there's a score of 3 and a score of 4 and our comments, but we can't change anything because it's already sent off in the mail. We can just look at our copy. All right. Let's see. I think that. To judge the next one. So we were in the My Reviews. To go back to actually judge the next portfolio, because we receive somewhere between 3 and 5 portfolios, we can click Opportunities. Again, we'll have to click Past to get back to the set the filter for where the competition is. Students have already submitted, so it's in the past. We can look at training example. You'll be clicking on the 2016 Kansas City area, either biomed or engineering competition, and click on Reviews. And once we're here, we can see that instead of 5, we have 6 complete out of the 11 that we're assigned to do. And again, you'll only have somewhere between 3 and 5 total that are assigned to you to review. So if we scroll down to the forklift safety, we can verify that it is complete. We have the complete review done. It is not active anymore, and we can move on to our next one, rotator cuff injuries. All right, I want to pause for any questions. I know there's a lot of specific information. I can jump back and review anything or answer any questions. We do limit this to a low number of attendees so we can kind of address any questions that come up. But are there any questions? All right, quiet group. Anne, did you have anything that you wanted to say?
Yeah, I'll just sort of wrap this up. Thank you, Elliot, for doing a great job. And the nice thing about this is I know you may not be looking at your reviews for another week or so, depending on your schedule. And so I will be sending you the link to this specific training, as well as the March 17th and the one that we're doing tomorrow. So you'll have options to look at. But if you have any questions at all, you can review the training, kind of get squared away on navigating within the portal. If you have any problems at all, as Elliot mentioned, you're welcome to contact him. You're welcome to contact me. I will likely send out a few reminders during the week, especially as we get closer to the 15th. If I notice you haven't been doing any of your reviews, but I think the best part about this contest is that it is flexible and you can do it at any time. So if you want to pull it up, do one at a time, it's great. If you want to knock them all out at once, that's fine. So whatever works best for your schedule. So I think if there aren't any more questions, I will be sending this out along with this information, along with the full rubric. And then we will, if you are doing the biomed contest, I would ask you just to stay online for a few minutes, and we're going to talk about just a couple of specific things for you guys. So otherwise, thank you to the engineering folks for being on board, and contact me if you have any other questions. Okay. So let's see. My online judges that are on would be Andrew and Dennis. Um, so, gentlemen, okay, so Dennis, this is not going to be surprising to you because we've had this conversation in the fall when we were actually talking about the fall workshop and the rubric. But Andrew, so one of the things that we decided last year after we piloted this with the engineering group was that the biomed folks came out and said, hey, we would really like to have a contest also. And we didn't have a rubric that had been through the same kind of rigorous testing and development for the experimental design process. But after talking with several teachers, actually after talking with Dennis and different folks across the country who have used this, we decided that we felt like the design rubric developed here was a close enough match to the experimental design process that we could try it with the biomed projects. So the only thing that we're actually doing a little bit differently is that we are not going to have the biomed judges score element G, which is construction of a testable prototype. And that's just because some of the projects will just be experiments, maybe a social science experiment where they haven't really, there's really not a prototype per se to develop, and we didn't want the students to get confused by that or waylaid, and so we're just going to omit this particular element. And with that said, there are a handful of projects that I anticipate being submitted that are design projects, kids that actually created, I think one of them was a special bandage to minimize scarring. Somebody else made some type of add-on for a wheelchair. And so there are some kind of cool design projects in there. And so I think the plan, it will be that if after all of the projects are scored, if I have some of the design related projects in the top 3, I may reach out to a handful of judges and ask them to actually score this element G. But I think we will have enough of the meat of the project in all of the other elements that I don't think that will be necessary. But this is the first year that we're doing this, so we're kind of building in a little bit of flexibility at the end of the project to see how it works.
And I just wanted to jump in. What this means is that G will not have that little blue pen icon on the bottom like other elements. So it's here right now, but it won't be there. Very similar to how M and N are not being scored, there will not be a pen icon on the bottom right-hand side, just for the biomedical competition and element G.
Right. Thank you. So, and then also, I really want to encourage you to please send me any feedback that you have in relation to negotiating the rubric, and if you feel like it feels too engineering focused. Basically, what I have said to different people that I've talked to in person about the biomed application is that I think for myself, what I did was just sort of insert the word experimental in front of design, and that helped me sort of get into a different mindset. So this is the first time we're doing it, so we appreciate everybody's patience and feedback and openness to trying this out, and then hopefully we'll see it'll go well, and we can make some changes and move forward next year.
And on that note as well, the feedback to definitely Anne, but also Dr. Goldberg, you'll be receiving a link to feedback. The engineering design process is pretty well validated that several judges will come to the same scores when evaluating a design project that students have done. Pretty validated rubric. An interesting thing to give feedback on with the biomedical side is it the same validated tool? Can it be used on the biomedical side? So send those comments off to Dr. Goldberg as well when you do that survey.
Yes, thank you. So are there any questions, Dennis? Do you have any comments, or who else? Let's see.
Hi,
Andrew?
this is Kevin Kent.
Yes.
Are the comments in the final part after you've done the grade, do those go directly to the student?
So my plan is to actually download that information and provide it to the teacher, and then let the teacher decide how that information will be shared with the student. So it's not set up so that the student actually sees this through the portal, but we do feel like it's great feedback for the student, and we want them to be able to get that. So you don't have to feel like you don't need to spend a lot of time like you're in a classroom, but if you have a really good salient comment for that student, that would be great. I am also one of the end users of your comments, because if I do have a couple of projects that are very close, the scoring is very close. I did have a situation last year where I did go in and look at the judges' comments to help me sort of rationalize some scoring.
Okay. So the feedback you're asking for, that's through the survey at the end, not through those comments at the end of the grading section, in terms of like how well the rubric is working and stuff like that.
Yes, actually, yes, good point. So if you are making a comment inside the judging process, inside the rubric, then that is specific to that project. And if the student is missing something, or they should have maybe approached it differently, but then yes, the feedback on the rubric would be either you can send me an email specifically, or you can participate in that survey, or both.
Okay.
So.
Thank you.
Great. Any other comments or thoughts, Dennis or Andrew?
And I was just going to say, no, this all sounds good. I'm kind of interested to get in there and start applying the rubric to see kind of the fruits of our discussion last fall. But no, it all looks pretty intuitive, I would say. And so I'll provide as much feedback afterwards as I can, so that we can certainly evolve the rubric for next year as well.
Awesome. Thank you, Dennis. Okay, well, thank you so much for giving us an hour of your time this afternoon. And again, thank you for judging. I'll be sending this information out and look forward to hearing from you.
Thank you very much, everybody.
Okay, take care. Bye-bye.
All right, thanks.
Bye.